Hello and welcome to Hornet Leader, Carrier Air Operations. Now some of you might be wondering, why am I picking such an old game to play? This is actually still one of my favorites, although Skies Above the Reich I have thoroughly enjoyed playing. So much so, as you can see, I did 2 long campaigns with it. But I just got the notice today that Corsair Leader is coming, and so I will be very much playing that as soon as it arrives. And I figured I wanted to, somebody wrote me and said that they weren't familiar with leader games, and they were a little upset that I compared Israeli Air Force Leader all the time to this game when they had never even played this game either. So I figured I wanted to get started. I know a lot of folks requested B-17. That's still on my list. In fact, I'm personal friends with Dean, the designer of it, and I don't know him that well, but he at least chats with me. And anyways, long story short, the rules to that game were a little more complex, and I honestly don't remember them all, and I'm always nervous about getting rules wrong. And since Corsair Leader's coming in just 2 days, I wanted to do something I was a little more familiar with. So that's why I went with this. So anyways, for those of you that are new to the game, to set up, first thing you need to do is you lay out your tactical display, which is this board. Almost all of the game will be done right here on this board. And I know it looks silly, but this is your tactical area where your target will be in the middle, and you'll be approaching it with your planes from the various directions using the different spaces. And there will be like anti-aircraft and things like that positioned throughout, and you can maneuver and avoid them and attack certain ones, etc. One of the things that you need to do is get your event deck, shuffle it, put it there. We also have a target deck, which I will get to in a second. Here's the target deck, and it's numbered. You can see there, number 60, all the way down to 1. So if you have this game, you want them to be in numerical order. Do not ever drop this deck. You want them to be in numerical order, and I'll explain why. That's because you're going to pick a mission. So I'm going to do the only expert mission in the game. This is the toughest one that the game has to offer. World War III, North Atlantic, 1986. I believe that Iraq is the introductory one, and I definitely recommend that one as your first one. This one will have all of the elements that Iraq has, plus a little bit more. And this one's going to be a lot harder. This one's definitely a challenge. Okay, so once you pick your sheet, you're going to have this big sheet here, and you're going to see here all these little numbers. So these numbers are targets. So see, for example, there's the number 2, and there's the number 4. So one of the things you have to do is go through this deck, and I'm holding my phone with one hand, but you would go through this deck, and number 2 would actually be a target for this particular campaign. Number 1 here is not a target for this campaign, or at least I don't think it is. Maybe there's a number 1 in this and I just don't see it. But anyways, you have to go through, and this is a little cumbersome, and there's no easy way to do it. You have to just go through and find each one, and then you build a target deck. You shuffle it and you put that there. So not all of the targets that are in the game will be used in each campaign. I hope that makes sense. And the targets are going to be thematic for the type of mission you're doing. For example, I can tell you number 60 is a carrier strike. So they're actually attacking you with bombers, I believe. 59 is as well. So here's where the Russians are attacking you. I believe 58 also is. So there's 3 of them there. And then I'm sure 34 and 35 are some other sea-based operation. So anyways, these lines do mean something. I'll explain those later. Obviously, these other things mean things. But for setting up the game, the only thing that matters are the numbers. You want to pull those numbers out of your target card deck and form a smaller subset deck here, and that deck is going to correspond to all these numbers. Okay? The other thing you're going to want to do is find these tokens. Your turn goes here on this track. The flight leader will be put on your actual pilot, so I just leave it here for now. You need to have it available. You will have a recon, an intel, and an infra, and for infrastructure. And those just go right on top of where the word is, and you can see there's these little arrows pointing to the right. So that means the recon value is 3 right now. The intel value is +3, etc. And eventually these are going to move to the right. And so that little arrow is showing that this is the current active value for the intel. These are all very bad. And that's actually the recon's pretty decent. But these are very bad. And that's because this is the expert game. When you play the Iraq mission, those will be very delicate and generous for you, or maybe that delicate was not the right word, but they'll be a lot easier. Okay, the other thing you're going to want to do is sort your pilots. So every pilot in the game comes with his own plane. So the pilot and the plane are one and the same. Some leader games separate the two. This one does not. And the other thing that's important is there's always three cards for every pilot. So I'm going to just get these 3 out for Alpo here. And here's some of the key things you need to understand. The first one is, you can see this is the green. So these pilots gain experience points and level up as they move through the mission. So if he's a green pilot, you would use this card. And then if he is a newbie, you would use that card. Actually, he starts as a newbie, and then he would promote to green. And then after green, he would go to average. Then he would promote to skilled. And then from skilled, he would promote to veteran, and then eventually to ace. So at any given point in time in the game, you're only using one of these cards and one face. So let's say you have a skilled Alpo. What I do is I put the other cards underneath him like this. So all 3 cards are available. So when he does get leveled up, you can always just find the card that you need and flip to it. But the game gives you 3 cards. They are all for the same pilot, and they're just representing the different promotion levels as he goes up in experience. And so every single pilot is going to have 3 cards like that. So you see Tigger here, and then there's Doc, who has 3, and they're all the same. Now let me separate this out a little bit more. So here's some other things to notice. This here has an SA. That's, why am I drawing a blank? It's like special actions, or there's a word for it, and I'm forgetting it. Maybe it is special actions. But these are really nice. Obviously, having 0 stinks. But this particular pilot doesn't need them as much. That's some of the strategy in the game. But you're going to find that every pilot is going to have something he's strong at and something he's weak at. And in this particular one is weak with the special actions. So, and we'll explain later what those mean. But that's just one of his abilities. Pilots have the ability to be fast or slow. And so this particular pilot is fast at the skilled level. But if you go over to the green level, you will see it's slow. What does fast and slow mean? Well, the AI gets to shoot at you. You get to shoot at the AI. If you're fast, that means you shoot at the AI first. If you're slow, you shoot after the AI goes. So being fast is really nice. Now, one of the ways you can mitigate the fast-slow thing is that that's what these special actions do. The special action lets you go during the fast phase and then go again during the slow phase if you wanted. So if you're a fast pilot, you can go twice in one round. Or more importantly, if you're a slow pilot, you can use the special action to go during the fast phase, so you actually get to go first, even though you normally wouldn't. So that's where the special actions and the speed go together. Okay, another thing that's important to notice is this C value is the cool value. So every pilot will go out and earn stress on a mission. So you can see here, the stress value in this area here is a 1. And if you're between these 2 lines and attacking any of these targets, your stress value is 2. So you can see it goes all the way up to a stress of 4 for these deeper missions, okay? So the cool value is like a modifier. So if your stress for your mission was 4, this would become 3. So basically he gets to reduce 1 stress from the mission. And if he doesn't go out on a mission at all, because it's possible that you're only allowed to send out 3 pilots and one of your pilots has to sit and, and doesn't go out for a particular day, that cool value actually gets added to the amount of stress he recovers. Because if they're doing R&R, this cool value increases the amount of recovery that they do as well. I tend to value cool very highly. I know I've debated with people on Board Game Geek about it. Some people think it's worthless. I happen to not be one of those people, but anyways, that's what that does. Another important number is the weight. That's what this W is. So the weight means that he can hold 8 units. I don't know if it's 8 tons or 8 whatever. It's 8 units of weapons, ammunition, bombs, whatever. And here's an example one here. We have this Mark 82. See that little blue number right there? It's the white number in the blue box, that number 1. That means this particular bomb, the Mark 82, weighs 1 unit or 1 point. So if you were to equip this plane with that bomb, he would be using 1 of his 8 points of weight to carry that. And then this one is 3 points. So he would be able to carry 5 more points. So I could do some kind of configuration. If I wanted to just do nothing but bomb, I can do this for 3, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Now, that's what this number is. So if I'm going here, what this is representing is that there's a distance you're traveling and you need extra fuel. So if you need extra fuel to travel this distance, then your weight points is -1. So in this particular case, I would only have 7 weight for a mission. So let's say if I'm doing a mission to number 6 here, I would only have 7 weight points, so I would have to take 1 away. That's how that works. Now, there's also some more complication. All this stuff, gobbledygook in yellow, is what kind of equipment they can carry. And if you'll notice, the Mark 84 and the Mark 82 are not on this particular plane. So these are illegal ammunition. I couldn't put these on this. This was just for example. This guy could. See right here, you could see the Mark 20, 82, 83, 84. So Tigger can carry these bombs. This guy, Alpo, cannot. He can only have AIM 120s, the AGM 88, and 154, and an ECM pod. Now, Alpo is probably my favorite pilot in the entire game, and we're not going to get to use him, and I'll explain why in a second. But this is an awesome, awesome plane, and then this particular pilot is awesome. His skills and whatnot, he's fantastic. But he has a very specific purpose in the game. I'll get to that in a second. So when I use that example with these Mark 82s and 84s, it was actually illegal to put those on him. He can only use 88s, 154s, etc. But the weight rule still applies. So this guy happens to have a weight of 10. So I could actually have a lot more. I have 3, 6, 7, and then I can do 8. Actually, why don't I just do 3, 6, 9? And if he was doing that mission that had the -1, that's what he could have, theoretically. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I didn't want to talk about these markers just yet. But it is important that each pilot and plane has specific munitions that they can carry. That is super important. Because one of the other choices in the game is you have to choose whether you are the Navy or the Marines. Okay, we're choosing the Navy for this mission, or this campaign. The Marines is a whole different game. That's what I love about this game. If you want to, you can do this whole campaign as the Navy, and then you do it again as the Marines. It's a completely different experience. And in fact, the Marines are for the crazy people. That's what I always like to say, because there's some crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that happens with them. And here's why. The Marines are only allowed to use the Harrier jets. I think they get to use stealth planes if you're far enough along. But these Harrier jets are only allowed to carry specific munitions. And if you'll notice, the AGM-88s are not one of them. And the AGM-88s are super helpful. So these Harriers have abilities and whatnot. We're not going to get to experience that because we're not doing a Marine mission. And I think only a crazy person would actually take a Harrier as an optional plane. But it is a fun way to play if you want to do something different. Anyways, Harriers, very, very cool in a different way. You have to be a glutton for punishment if you want to do the Harrier ones. You have to be willing to lose your pilots. I mean, that's basically the bottom line. You're going to have people die. The other thing is, and I have these out, is we have stealth bombers. So this particular pilot, Salsa, is part of the you can see it's the F-35 Lightning. And one particular thing I haven't mentioned yet is they have a year on them. So this particular year means you have to be playing a mission that's 2014 or later to be able to have these stealth planes. These stealth planes do exist, like I said, for the Marines. So if you do the Marines, it is cool to do a 2014 or later mission because then you get to mix these in with all the Harriers. It makes the game a little more interesting, so you're not just dealing with a bunch of pilots that all have the exact same plane. We cannot do that because our mission, as you can see, is 1986. So one of the other things you have to do is you go through all your pilots and you get rid of anything that's not 1986. So, for example, Alpo here, now you can see why we're not going to get to use him. He's a 2011, and he's what they call a growler, because he's a 18G, so they call it a growler. I'm not a huge expert on this type of stuff. I just know it from, playing this game so much. He's really good at basically doing electronic countermeasures and making sure that everybody in your fleet is not being hit. That's what makes him so awesome. And then, of course, these AGM-88s I was telling you about, they're really good at taking out radar stations and radar-guided anti-aircraft. So you can use him to basically clear a path for the rest of your bombers. He is so awesome, and I am sad I'm not going to get to use him. But that just means that maybe a future time we can do a 2011, or my preference, a 2014 or later mission, and then we can show how the stealth and the other things. So there's planes in here you're not going to get to experience in this particular campaign. Now, there's also, for example, Tomcats. I know I have them here somewhere. Where are they? Okay, I will find one eventually. But basically, the Tomcats are, here we go. Here's one, Teflon. So here you can see the Tomcat goes from 1972 to 2006. So if you're doing those missions that use stealth planes like Salsa here, the Lightning, the F-35, you can't use the F-14s anymore. So there's certain planes you're not going to get to experience in the futuristic ones, although when this game was made, that was considered futuristic at the time. It's not futuristic anymore. This Tomcat, though, is right up our alley, and it is definitely, during World War III era, 1986, it is definitely in our arsenal, available for us to use, and I am going to definitely have one or two of those. The other thing to notice is that you'll see these numbers in parentheses, -2, -4, -6. So when you pick your campaign, you're going to choose to do a short, a medium, or a long campaign. And the difference is the number of days. If you like to level up your guys, I recommend a long campaign. If you just want to get a quick in and out game, then do the short campaign. So based on which one you do, you get what's called SO points, which are, I'm drawing a blank on that too, special op points or something of that nature. they're basically your currency in the game. So you start the game with 54 SO points. And in this particular leader game, you don't earn them. There's other leader games where you get like new points every week or every day. In this particular one, that 54, you have to make it last the entire campaign. There's a few opportunities to get more points, but you can't depend on them and you can't rely on them. Okay? So then, and the rest of this is just saying that for a long campaign that's 12 days long, you need to score at least 52 victory points to get a great evaluation. So they give you sort of a scale here. So even if you score 21 victory points, that's considered dismal for this. Okay? So these numbers in parentheses are for the short campaign, the medium campaign, and the long. So what it's saying is if I pick this particular pilot, now I understand that year doesn't qualify, but let's say I pick this one and I'm doing a long campaign, I have to pay 6 SO points to have this particular plane, because this is a special type of plane. So in order to get this is considered to be, high-tech material or hard to get, type of equipment. So you have to pay special operation points to get them. And obviously, if you do a stealth fighter, it's pretty pricey. You have to spend 9 points just to get one stealth. Okay? The Harriers, for example, they have positive numbers. So you notice that these ones are all negative numbers. So if you take a Harrier, this is one of the reasons why you would actually take one. So you take a Harrier, you add him to your arsenal of guys, you get to add 12 points. So basically, this is considered such an ancient, or, I don't know. There's just enough of them available, and it does add to the difficulty of your game. If you take one Harrier, you get to add 12 points. So that 54 SO points now becomes 66. So you might take some Harriers so you can buy some of these. And this is what's really cool about the Marine mission. And I know I'm talking about it a lot, but the Marine mission is all Harriers. So if I were to do World War III, I'm only allowed to take Harriers as Marines. I can't have any Hornets or other planes. So I'm adding 12 points each in every plane that I'm adding to my group. And that is amazing. And I guess the best thing I can tell you is that in doing that, I have special operation points to do whatever I want. And so you can spend special operation points to promote people, to buy special gear and equipment. And so you can really have a very interesting game. It also, you can have what's called a special R&R, where you're paying to reduce stress. A lot of the Harrier pilots don't have a cool value like this one does. This one has a 1. Most of them don't. So anyways, they gain stress pretty easily, and you have so many special operation points, you can roll in like a gangster and spend it. Take out a big wad of 50s and spend it. So the Marine missions, like I said, are so different because of that. I mean, you'll be well over 150, maybe even 200 special operation points when you do a Marine mission. As a Navy, though, it's not going to be quite as nice. Like I said, you can take some Harriers, but one of the other ones I like to take, so for example, you can see there's a Corsair here. This is the Vietnam era plane. You'll see this in like Phantom Leader. And this one goes from 1967 to 93. So it had a long life of service. And this one, if you add this to your fleet, you get to add 12 points, just like the Harriers. Now, the reason why I might pick this one over the Harriers is you'll notice it carries a lot more of a bomb. It has more bomb options to be carried, and it actually allows you to carry more weight than a Harrier. A Harrier only lets you carry 6. This is a 7. In a lot of ways, this is a superior plane. And if you use them just for doing bombing runs and not doing air-to-air combat, these are actually pretty nice, and you get 12 points for adding it to your fleet. And then you can use those 12 points to buy. Oh, so sorry about that. You can use those 12 points to buy other planes. Okay, so there's also another Vietnam era one called the Intruder. And so you'll see this one was from 1963 to 1997. These are all available to us for this particular mission, and we will definitely be buying some of those. And once again, see, this one has no pluses or minuses. So this one, you just take it, and it doesn't cost you any special operation points, and you don't gain any either. And then last but not least, there's AWACS planes. So here you can see, and these just do a lot of electronic countermeasures. They also help you with avoiding events that are bad. And if you'll notice here, they get 3 special action points. That's an important thing. They can use it to give out special actions to other pilots. So, for example, if you have a slow pilot, you actually have 3 points you can dish out during a mission, and you can make a slow pilot fast. And so having one of these along, it's basically like if you play RPGs, this is your cleric. You know, this one's going to go out and dish out buffs to everybody else and help them to be better at what they do. And thematically, it makes sense because they're basically your radar in the air, and so they're your eye in the sky, and they're giving you advantage over your enemy. Okay. All right, so I can spend all day going over the different types of planes. I mean, look at that giant stack there. I actually have 3 stacks of planes that I created. You guys can do whatever you'd like, obviously, but obviously they're sorted by type. So this is my Harrier stack. These are all the Harrier pilots. Remember, there's 3 cards per pilot, but that's still a very thick stack. These are the pilots I don't care for. I actually went through and rated each one based on what kind of skills and abilities they have, and I usually don't pick them. Now, one of the things you can do is you can randomly pick pilots. They have an ability to just, so like every pilot has its own little counter. You can put those in a bag and shake it up and then just randomly draw them out, and that's the pilot you do the mission with. I definitely, if you want a challenge, I recommend that's viable. And I know a lot of people, this is the way they prefer to play the game. I like to handpick my pilots, just like when I play an RPG game, I like to roll my characters and pick what class and race they are. This game is an RPG for me. And so anyways, there's particular pilots that I like, and those are my third pile, and you see them spread out here and over here. These are all the pilots I like. Obviously, not all of them apply to this particular campaign, but I have them in their own pile. And so usually when I recruit pilots, I'm going to recruit them from this pile only. In fact, that stack can just stay in the box for me. I'm not saying you have to do it, and you may end up really liking that Toon guy up there. I'm not trying to say that these stink. I'm just saying from my play style. And that's the other beauty of this game, is there's different play styles. For my play style and the things I like to do, I prefer the other pilots more. Okay? All right, so last but not least, there's pilots can endure a certain number of stress. So as long as they're not stressed, they get the top level of statistics. And so what this is just saying is the pilot's fine. If it endures a lot of stress, the pilot will become shaken. And if they become shaken, their abilities drop. So you don't want to be in the shaken. You always want to stay in the okay range. And like I said, pilots can skip missions. You know, there's a certain number of days. There are 12 days in the campaign. So you can skip, for example, day number 3 and recover some stress so you can get out of that shaken and move back into the okay box. And then there's 2 primary stats for every plane in the game. This one's air to air, and this one's air to ground. So basically, as you roll your dice, you know, maybe you need a 6 to hit your target. This lets you add +1 to your roll. This one lets you add +2 to your roll, for example. And so whatever it is that you need to roll to hit, the higher the number, the better. And obviously, as you can see, this particular pilot, if he becomes shaken, his air-to-air values actually drop, and so does his air-to-ground. Quite a lot, in fact. Okay, so there's a whole bunch. You can spend hours and hours analyzing your pilots and trying to figure out which ones to pick. I think this is why some people just randomly pull them from a bag, because they don't want to do that. They don't want to get into that analysis paralysis. I've allowed myself to, and I've analyzed these front and back. You have to pay attention to a couple other things. Like, number one, you want to see what their stats are like, when they're a veteran or ace. But you also want to see what their stats are like when they're, a newbie. Because, for example, here, look at this newbie. I mean, he's pretty poor. So you have to be mindful of that. And it's okay to have a poor newbie because the game lets you promote certain ones for free. So you'll have maybe 2 pilots you get to pick that are skilled at the start of the game. This particular pilot may be one of the ones you don't want to have start off as a newbie, for example. The other thing that you have to bear in mind is there's a number here next to every one, and that's the number of experience points they need to level up. This changes drastically. Alpo, for example, has really low numbers. This is one of the reasons I love him. I can start him off super low, like newbie. He only needs 3 points to level up. He only needs 3 points to level up. Here he needs 5. There he only needs 4. And then 7. Whereas look at this guy. He needs 9. And there's a 7. And a 6. And a 4. Yeah, so his numbers are just overall much higher. So for the same number of experience points, this guy will become an ace pilot before this one. And so, again, you can spend hours looking at this stuff. I'm going to pick my pilots. I'm not going to do that on camera, largely because I don't have 2 hands. And I need 2 hands to sort it. I need 2 hands to go through that deck. I'll do all that off camera, and then I'll just show you who I picked. And maybe a brief explanation of why. Just going through all the components, I want to go through the rest of it. Every one of the munitions, if you will, you just need to sort them. They're always double-sided. So, for example, this is a Mark 83 on one side and a Mark 20 on the other. Just try to sort them into their various piles. This is a very cumbersome setup. So having something like this where they're always sorted for you is a huge time savings. These are special. They will come up on specific targets. So don't worry about those, but just keep them off to the side. Same with these. Once again, they're very special for specific targets. You will find that there are, I actually have some chits that are broken. So there's these other ones that say bandits and fast. This is for an optional rule called night missions. I don't recommend that for your first game, and I'm not going to do that for this game. I don't particularly like night missions very much. They do add an interesting variability to the game, but for me it's just extra busy work. I don't like the enjoyment factor I get out of that extra variability versus the amount of busy work I have to do to maintain and remember what to do next. I don't really care for it, but you might. And there's a section in the rulebook that explains it. And in a nutshell, there's a sequence. When you do a mission, you start at number 1 and you go straight through. And here you can see at number 14, fast pilots attack. And then at 15, the sights, and this is the AI, they get to attack. And then slow pilots attack. Well, if you're doing night missions, what that does is you get to actually, these can be in any order. They get randomly selected. So the slow pilots might get to attack first. And then the fast pilots actually attack last. And it's all because of the confusion of a night mission. Not a big fan of it, but like I said, it's there and it's an option. And I may not have done it justice in describing it, but in a nutshell, that's how I've understood it when I've read it. The other things you need, besides just having those sorted, is I have these little trays here. So these are stress tokens. So, for example, this would represent that the pilot has 1 stress or 2 stress. Now, you may notice that your copy of the game does not have these are all just the 1s and 2s. And then I have the 3s and 4s, 5s and 6s. And you may be thinking to yourself, holy cow, how do you have so many? And the reason in my answer is these are every leader game DVG ever made. I combined them all because they use stress in just about every game they make. Stress does the exact same thing in every single game. So these little tokens I actually keep in a separate place. And it doesn't matter which leader game I pull off the shelf, I use these stress tokens to resolve their stress. And the other thing is DVG gives you barely enough to play, and you're constantly making change. Like if somebody has 6 stress, you're constantly having to make change so you can get tokens available for the rest of your pilots. When you mix them all together like this, you can just go to town. I have more tokens than I'll ever need, and so it's a nice luxury. Okay, so going through other stuff, these just set aside. They're the special action points. See this thing we were talking about? This represents your special action points. So this particular pilot, for example, has 3 special action points. I would take 3 points worth and put it on that particular pilot for a mission. And then as I spend them, I would just consume them, and then they eventually go away. That's what that's for. Like I said, these are the pilots for missions. I believe these are all the Harriers. So I keep them in their own category. And then I have, remember how I told you I have the stack of pilots I never pick? I think that's what these are. And then these are the pilots I like to play as. So they're in their own category, so I can just sort through a smaller list. Each of these, there's a unique one for every pilot. So for example, this is that same, so this is Slick. I think he's a Hornet. You just put them on here, and they're used to represent moving around the map. So is it important to have the exact one? No, but you're going to want it because there's going to be 5 or 6 of them flying around in here, and you need to be able to match it up with the stats on their card. So it's very important to have the right one. For that reason, it's a bit cumbersome at the start of the game to go through all these and find the right one. Because you're going to have this stack plus that stack plus that stack to go through. But like I said, once you sort them, if you can keep them sorted, it makes it easier. Okay, these are just more munitions, but these are the AIM 9s, which we use a ton in this game. So I just put them in their own category. Also, I think Israeli Air Force Leader and a couple other games use these. So this is actually multiple leader games mixed together. So I just have one bucket for these. These are used a lot in every game. This is our bandit counters. Now every leader game does bandits a little differently. This particular one, you just put all these in a cup like this. I would just pour them all in the cup, and then I'm just drawing blindly from the cup, and then they get put on the map based on whatever target I'm dealing with. Now, some campaigns like this one have a special note, remove the Mirage 3s. So somewhere in here, you have to go through every one, and one side is a ground target. The other side is what's called the bandit target. Okay, so this one here you can see, sorry, it's not focusing there. This one says no bandits. Okay, this one is a MiG. This one's a MiG-29. And you'll see on the other side is a ground target. Okay, there's a phase where you're drawing ground targets. So you would just draw a bunch of chits, and then they're all used for their ground side. And then there's a phase where you're drawing bandits, which are the air targets. And then when you draw them, you're using this side. And there is this. So when you are drawing, let's say you're drawing 6 bandits. There's no guarantee you're going to be fighting against 6 enemy planes. There's a variability factor where some of them say no bandit. And so there's a chance that you will have less than 6 enemy planes, but you have to pick your munitions before you start the mission. So you can't guarantee yourself how many planes you're going to encounter on the mission. So there's some variability, and it's a really cool way of handling the AI in this game that I really love about it. And you never know, so you can't just arm exactly enough munitions to take out 6 planes. because you may not get 6 planes. And so then you're going to get greedy and say, well, maybe I'll take a few less air-to-air missiles and take a few more bombs, because your goal in this game is to destroy targets, not destroy planes. And then you end up finding out that more bandits arrive than you were expecting, and then you're in a load of trouble. So anyways, this game, very cool that way. What the special rules say is that we need to remove the Mirage 3s. So somewhere in here, actually I got lucky and found one. This is a Mirage 3. So it's unfortunate because see that little +2 there? That means they're real easy to hit. But this Mirage 3 is out of the game. So you have to go through the whole thing and take them out. Now what I tend to do is I just take them out as I find them. So I just throw the whole thing in the bucket. And then as I pull them out, I just make sure that if I find a Mirage 3, I take it out. In fact, I think I found the second one here. Yes, I did. I don't even know how many there are. So one of the things I wish DVG would have done is said, when it says remove Mirage 3s, I would have liked for it to put in a parenthesis like 10, meaning that there's 10 of them to remove. I have no idea if I found them all, so, but I got lucky and I already found 2. So I'll take those out, and then as we go through more, I'll take them out as well. But there's a whole bunch in here, and I won't worry about it. I think, every mission thematically, certain planes just didn't, certain MiGs or enemies didn't exist at the time, or in this particular case, I think these are just super easy to kill. So this is the hardest mission in the game, so leave it to DVG to want to make you get a nice challenge. So since these 2 aren't being used, I did pull them from this tray, so I'm just going to put them back in the tray. And then, like I said, as I pull more out, I'll figure it out there. And they give you dice. They only give you 2, but in this game, remember I told you I have mini leader games, so I actually have a whole bunch of dice from all the leader games mixed together. And then last but not least is this. This is damage. So if we're damaging this particular target, this airfield, you would put it right here. And this airfield is trying to, what it's saying is that in the approach boxes, there's going to be 1 sight and 2 in the center. So remember how I said we're going to draw the bandit stuff? So what they're saying is that every approach box, which is this one, this one, this one, and this one, there's 4 of them, 1 from each direction orthogonally. For every approach box, we're going to have 1 ground sight. And then there's going to be 2 ground sights right here at the target. Okay? Then it's saying that for every approach box, there's going to be 1 bandit. So we're going to draw 4 bandits. And remember, some of them could say no bandit. And then we're going to draw 1 for the center. So we're going to draw 5 total bandit chits and then 6 ground sights. Okay? That's how you're going to lay out your target. And then we're going to be approaching from various areas and trying to take out this target. This target awards 2 victory points. It gives you a recon and an infra. So see how this says 1 and that says 2? What that means is if you succeed in destroying the target, the recon actually improves by 1 and the infra would improve by 2. So you want it to go this way, all of them. They get better and better as they move to the right. So the other thing about it is these are special rules down here. They're going to be different for every target, so you have to sort of read through them and resolve them. But right here is the big number 7. You need 7 hits on this target, and that's what this is. So this is saying that I hit that target 3 times. Okay, so I need 7 hits to destroy the target. And this big number 4 here is how many planes I can send on the mission. So if I have 8 pilots, I can only send 4 of them. And this is what I was talking about, how the pilots that don't go on a mission and skip a particular day, they actually get R&R and can recover stress. So you can rotate your pilots and whatnot. And anyways, that's what this last thing is, and it's definitely nice to keep those handy. And this is another one of those. DVG gives you just barely enough. And once you get some more leader games, you can mix them together. And look at this. This is multiple leader games mixed together, and it's still not that much. But it's very, very nice. Okay, so that's what you need. Your first step in the game, after you pick your campaign, and I'm picking the long campaign, 54, the first thing you have to do is hire your pilots. So that's could be a painstakingly long process. I will do that off camera. And what you do is you fill out your sheet. This says Israeli Air Force Leader. I'm using this particular sheet because it's superior to the Hornet Leader one. Don't worry. You can do the same thing on the Hornet Leader one. It's just this one has a lot nicer. I just like this one way more. So what we do is we write in World War III. We're doing Navy instead of Marine because you have to choose which one you're doing. We're doing a 12-day. We're doing a 12-day long campaign. Okay, this is going to go over 12 days. All right. We started with 54, and then we're going to add and subtract SO points based on what we hire and not. And these pluses and minuses are because, remember, this is a minus here. Need to focus that. Yep, see that's a minus. And then there was a plus over there. So that Corsair gives you plus 12. So take pluses and minuses, and then after you factor that in, there are no skills in this game. Skills are in Israeli Air Force Leader, which I highly recommend. Skills are pretty damn nice. But then after you do your adds and subtracts, how many SO points do you have? How many did you spend? And then basically you write down here under the starting SO points, how many you start the game with. So you can see I did some preliminary math because I think I have an idea of who I'm going to hire. I need to double check that, and once I do, I will hire my guys, and then I'll explain all that, and we'll make sure this math is correct, and I'll write in my pilots, and off we will go. So anyways, thank you for watching.